Hello, everybody. You are watching Passion Project, and I'm your host, Kat Margulis. Today, I have my friend, Pastor David Saenz, who is also the founder of Experience Church. So I'm going to bring him on now. Hi, David.
Hi, Kat.
Hi,
everyone. Good.
Thank you so much for coming on the show today. We're coming off of Easter weekend, which must be an especially busy weekend for you. So thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's great to see you.
It's an honor. And I told people yesterday, Easter for us is more like Super Bowl. It's like the Christian Super Bowl.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I got the chance to experience church, and I think I've already shared with you, like in my family, we didn't go to church growing up. So church, religion is just has not been part of my life. And I got to experience church, and it was really cool. It was so different. And so when I asked you a little bit more about it, it's interesting because it's like Kurt Cobain, he sung, right? Like anything that we're doing has been done before. And I imagine none more so than church. I mean, there's a few churches on every block. And here you are, not only creating a new church, but reinventing the wheel, so to speak. So I would love if you could share with people what you're up to and what you're creating.
Yeah. Thank you. That's so amazing that like even your words are just so encouraging, because every person has a dream, and to really achieve that dream, many times you find, disappointments, dead stops, and all these kind of challenges. And for me, even yesterday, we celebrated 3 years. And my first words 3 years ago, I reread them to our community, and I said, today is the beginning of a journey where we get to rethink the way we do church. Those were the words that I shared with them 3 years ago. And I love that the community has we have had our challenges in 3 years, like anything else when you cast a vision, and it looks different than what we thought, yet the vision has always been the same, to rethink church and to re-engage people in terms of a conversation, because I think everyone wants to be heard, everyone wants to be known, and hardly do we create that space for that actually to happen. And people know in their journey what they really want. And if we provide that space, not just in their, in their professional life, but also in their spiritual life, I think they get to discover who they were created to be and how to live a full life.
So interesting that this conversation is going to go in a different direction than I thought it was going to go, which I love. So interesting that you say where people can be heard. That's not something I would normally associate with a church, where I just feel my idea is that you're spoken to or spoken at, not a place where you're heard. So that's fascinating. Is that different?
Yes, totally. And like the model, obviously for me, and when I see great leaders, I see very powerful, charismatic leaders, but also humble, and also ready to shift and ready to go deep where people, need the most support or encouragement. And that's the leader I see in Jesus. Like when we think of organizational church, that's not what he did so much as personal conversations with his disciples, with a bigger, with bigger masses, and I think people were attracted to that because it was authentic, and it was in a way where he told stories. And I think it was a way for people to think, okay, I can be in that story, this person or this person or this person. And they were not told which person are you going to be in this story. You got to really listen to the story and then put yourself in that position. How do you react to that situation? How do you how were you really playing the game of life, basically? And then when people see the different venues or what happens when they show up in a way in their professional lives, in their marriages, as parents, in their finances, I think it's so much powerful than when somebody tells you should do certain things. Because then we look at that and we're like, well, I tried to do these things and they didn't work, so maybe this is not for me. And
Mhm.
I think it's a different approach.
So you said this vision actually started 3 years ago.
Hmm.
What was your vision? Yeah, what was that vision at that time?
Yeah. So 3 years ago, my wife and I, we were in our anniversary, and we started driving up the Freeway 1 we wanted to go up to Google. We wanted to visit like what's happening in like San Francisco area, right? And like it was with all these tech. This is actually 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And we're driving and we're having conversations, and we were listening to a book, and this book kind of evoked questions in terms of our own journeys of faith. And we learn, and like through what we were sharing with each other, that most of our experiences where big shifts happen in our lives, they were not because we were listening to a message. They were more because we had a conversation or because we experienced something. Either we went to another world and like another country. We did work in different areas, and in that we saw the world in a different way. By
Mhm.
engaging with people, in a third world country, and as we were having those conversations, we thought it's experiences that really shape our faith, and it is conversations that have helped us in our marriage. Before we got married, deciding what to do when we bought our first home, and all those were surrounded by people who poured into us. So we said, okay, what if we create a church that is experiential and that allows the space for conversations? Because if we connect people, then this can happen to everyone, not just you and I. And
Mhm.
then faith becomes something that we're experiencing, and we're connecting it to people and walking alongside other people. And I let people speak into my life, and I have opportunities to speak in other people's lives. Now, the problem with that is that is so risky, because you're gonna have people coming from all over, and it's gonna be, you're gonna decentralize what is supposed to be controlled and supposed to be one way, and we're kind of decentralizing faith in terms of trusting people, trusting God. And as we open up in conversations, and even at the end, we have something called questions and response. At the end, we're really trusting that the whole community is going to come around, and you see people coming so authentically and so powerful and speaking into each other's life. And at the end, we're like, what just happened? All right, that was church. That people were
Yeah.
left encouraged, or with a challenge, or with a stress, or in a way that really affects their life.
Yeah, that was my experience. Like I felt that it was very welcoming to somebody who was not in it already. And I
Mm-hmm.
love that the day that I went, you opened it up with, who's got questions? If
Yeah.
you got questions about God, Jesus, you don't believe, whatever, let's talk about it. So I just love that you were open to the conversation and
Yeah.
exploration of it. It was so beautiful.
Yeah. And that's the other piece. Even as we present certain things, I always said, in light of your past, maybe you've done things and they've worked, and we want to hear about it. Please tell us. Maybe you've done other things and you feel like they have not really worked. In that area, we get to speak and go a little bit deeper, so we don't keep going into the same patterns.
Mhm.
And that we approach it by curiosity
Yeah.
and exploration. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. You definitely create that and create a safe space for it to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And, pardon the pun, but it takes the leap of faith, right? So I'm so curious when you put that out to your people 3 years ago, and even maybe before that, when you and Tiff were having that conversation, like we're going to try something new here. When anybody has any passion project, a business they're launching, anything that they're up to, there's a point where they get to take a leap of faith and be like, I'm doing something I have not done before. I don't have evidence that this is going to work. What moves you through that moment?
So I'm gonna share with you, because this is so, I love that question. And I actually heard these words in a story, and I'm gonna kind of use them for how to answer this question. Because every time when you have a dream, you will experience, as you step into that dream, the first thing that you will experience is delay. and and some people, when they face that delay, they get discouraged, right? Like in every dream, you say something. Like I remember telling my lead pastor, because I was working in another church, and I said, I want to have conversations with people out of like that don't believe what I believe. And by then we've done community groups who we had these amazing conversations with atheists, with people who maybe they were Russian Orthodox, and they have all these different beliefs, but we all wanted to be better husbands, better dads, better moms, better sons and daughters, So we had that in common. And I said, what if we create groups we have that in common, and then everything else we talk about it in terms of exploring. What does that look like? What faith? How has faith play a role in all this? And we did a little practicing. And when I said I want to have a church like that, most churches are kind of like, oh, that's not church, And that was the dream part. And at first there was delay. After that dream, there came a time of delay. I tell people, and there was not a whole lot of momentum happening. Not a lot of people were like, yes, go, David. But there was a few people that, in a few experiences that I had, that I'm like, okay, we're moving on the right direction. And I felt for me, people that did not know me, I will share this, and they will say, David, like, I can totally see that. I can totally see you doing that. But there was still delay. There was not a like this green light, go, 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 go. And then after the delay, it came disappointment. After you follow your dream, after you experience delay, there's going to be a moment of disappointment, because you're going to maybe break from some relationships in order to get your dreams achieved.
I love that.
And it doesn't mean it's a hard breakup. I'm not saying that you're like ignore, but there's going to be, there's a status quo that always resists change.
Mm-hmm.
And in order for you to pursue your dreams, you have to overcome that status quo. Mm-hmm. And I remember, I work for my father-in-law. So the disappointment of me leaving that church, it was heavy on us, on them, on friendships that we developed through 7 years. And also, we had other people who were like, hey, David, I feel called to support whatever you're going to create. And I'm like, I don't know where we're going. I don't know if it's going to be here in San Diego at that point. I don't know if it's going to be, and we went for it. We leaned into the dream. After your dream, the delay, then some disappointment, we launched. And we launched, and it was big, it was exciting, and everybody likes to come to new things. So after that, you hit a dead stop. And here is where your dream and your vision now start shaping your culture. Because when you start your dream, people say, yeah, I'm for you. But when you start living it, people are going to be like, well, I don't know. This is going to be costing too much. It's tiring, And I learned that there's people who may support you in whatever you're going to start and not necessarily maintain what you're doing. You have to then surround with new group of people, because the people who help you launch and start something, they're going to be very entrepreneurial at heart, yes. which means that they're going to move to something else. Uh-huh. And you just have to know that that's okay. Mm-hmm. That's, and throughout that process for me was obviously, like praying, asking God, learning in terms of my leadership, shaping, but the vision never changed. The way we did things did change, but what we were called to do, which was we wanted to create a place for people to experience life, love, and community, by establishing conversations of faith, with people far wherever they are in their journey of faith. That never changed. And after we hit that dead stop is when I start noticing this is about to change for just being a dream to be the culture of who we are.
Wow, that's so cool.
And it was very, very challenging. And after that, when you were able to press into it, I call it last D, I call it the deliverance. The deliverance is when you start living your dream and your culture, and people, not only you're saying what you want to create, but people around you are understanding, and they're also sharing that vision with you. This is who they are in their ways of being. They're called to do this too, and your role is just to empower them to really live it out.
That's beautiful. Like, I love the perseverance of it. and as a writer, I love the hero's journey of it, like the highs and the lows, and it's not as easy or as certain as you might think it might be.
Oh, and as everything, in order to change that status quo, it takes time. And I love that you've given me this space too, that you invited me to do this. But in about the next week, I'm doing a webinar with a bunch of pastors, and they're asking me that the title is Digital Church Here to Stay? And what we've done now through Zoom and really still creating this space, connection, and now people are in their comforts of their home talking about these very deep conversations. I think they're not like, I'm going to talk about something uncomfortable because I'm in a comfortable place. Mm-hmm. That's a win-win. That's a win-win. And so in this webinar, I think it's going to be very powerful to start moving the direction of probably many churches where we bring conversations and we really hear people where they're at in order for us to continue walking people on this journey rather than just one-way conversations. They're here to listen to us.
Yeah. So awesome. And you bring up something about asking God, and we had my mentor, and Carrie Stanley, and she also talked about asking. And have you heard answers when you ask? It's like,
that's a good question.
Yeah. Has it worked for you?
So so I think God speaks in different ways. Obviously, we cannot put God in a box. Have I heard David, like with this Morgan Freeman voice, right? Because Bruce Almighty, this is me. I have not. But let me tell you a story. This is actually before planting Experience Church. I took some time off and I went to the mountains. And I did, we do a practice called fasting, right? Like everybody, like fasting is good for you. And also it helps you as you have a need in your body to feed yourself. It triggers a remind you of maybe there's something I can feed myself, but also is very sustainable and very powerful spiritually. So that's the trigger is just a memory thing. Like, oh, I need to be fed. But this time you focus instead of food spiritually. And I went to these mountains and I took my journal. I had just like, my Bible, my journal, and I'm like, okay, is this that thing? Like, should I just really launch this? And I wanted to, I didn't have a name at that time. I didn't have a timeline, but that's what I wanted. I wanted the answers to, yes, David, it's going to be called this. You're going to launch in 2 years or a year. It's going to be this other people who are going to support you. Like I wanted the answer to my questions. And I even wrote some of those questions. I'm like, if you're real and you want this to happen, I need these answers.
Yeah.
And I went in and I kept praying and logging. And at the last day I was at the camp, I look at my notes and I heard, like, this is what I mean by hearing God or hearing from God. I heard him saying, you're exactly where I want you to be, nearer to me. Keep asking, keep moving. And that's it. You're exactly where I want you to be, nearer to me. Meaning for me, it was like this journey is not about one question. Guess what? The minute I get the answer to that question, I'm going to have another question. Where? And after I get the where, I'm going to have another question. How many, and then, and whatever questions, answers that we have over what I felt God telling me is like, when you're near, I will have answers to the future questions that you're not even asking yet. So if you're near, you will have the answers, but if you want an answer, you may separate from me when you have it, when I give it to you. So for me, and here's where, for me, like we said, and like I get goosebumps.
Yeah, I have goosebumps. It's beautiful.
Goosebumps. But for me, the powerful thing is I finished my day and I'm like, okay, I feel complete. I feel like I got an answer. It was like, I didn't feel like, no, it was a yes, but near to me. Like, keep asking. Yes, and I'm with you. And I went into this restaurant to finish my fast, and it was part of a camp. It was a cafeteria, not a restaurant. It's too fancy. It was not fancy at all. And I sit down, and there's this other gentleman in front of me, and he goes, "David, I finally made you," because I was never in the cafeteria because I was fasting the whole time that I was in this camp. And they're like, I keep seeing your name popping in. There was a guy named David, but I'm glad I'm finally get to meet you. And I met this gentleman. He was probably in his 60s now, and he told me, what are you doing here? And I say, I'm praying to see I start a church. And then he starts telling me his story. And about, I don't know, 40 or 30 years ago, he planted a church. And he went to my school where I graduated from. He did the major. I was an aviation major when I was in college. Yeah. And he was a pilot too, and he graduated with that. Then he felt the call of God to go into ministry. And then he was part of a church, and then he planted a church. And he went to the dream, delay, disappointment, dead stop, and now he was living out his life, 60. And he goes, every 5 years, I come to these mountains because I keep asking God, and he tells me I just need to be near him because the questions that I'm asking right now, he wants to answer them, but at the same time, I will have questions after that. So keep coming here. Everything that I wrote down in my thing, somebody else spoke into me. And that's where, when you say, do you hear from God? I think I do, but I don't hear it as this isolated event. I hear it as keep looking into your heart, dig in, write it down, express it. And then maybe people around you are going to be like, yes, I see that in you. Yes. Keep going, and this has been the entire journey. And it's even part of our culture. This is why we trust people speaking into each other on Sundays when we meet, because we've seen that happening in a powerful way.
Well, that's so beautiful. I'm like teary. Yeah. I really love that. I'm going to end on that note because that's such a beautiful way. But I really love that. Like, keep near me, keep asking, keep moving. I mean, that's just for everything, right? So beautiful, David. Thank you so much for being on the show today. It's just a pleasure to be with you.
No, it's an honor. My pleasure, Kat. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. All right. Bye-bye. Well, thank you, David, for being on the show. You guys, I will have some show notes on the website at passionprojectpod.com where you can find David. And thank you all for listening. See you next time.